Joel, are you ready for the world has been anticipating this moment for 7 days, Joel Pilger?
No pressure. Well,
Yeah.
I'm going to share. I'm calling this a draft module because when I actually do a full module, I record it, and of course, our team edits it and perfects it. But I'm going to walk through this just to give everyone the basic concepts. And then once the module is officially published, if you DM me, I'll just add you to a list and make sure that you get access to the final module, the official published version. And I'm happy to share that for free to anybody that's interested. So just DM me on Slack. But let's get into it, shall we?
Yeah, let's do it. Because here's what I know, Joel. Sales solves all problems, right? So you're going to solve all of my problems in the next 30 minutes.
If only. All right, Marcel, I see you have to jump off. Thanks for being with us. Let's get into this module.
Marcel.
Here's what we're going to talk about. This is the agenda, and I'm going to go through this pretty quick. Just know that the detail will be there when you're ready. All right, here's what I'm going to walk through with you today. In this module, talk about the feast or famine cycle. Don't you love it and hate it? I also want to talk about what is sales and come up with a definition and maybe take that word and make it less dirty. I want to briefly mention why is sales so complex? What's the deal? Then I have this thing called stretching out and scaling up. And then we'll get into the basics of setting up a sales pipeline. And then what about a routine? What's a good, healthy sales routine look like? So let me step through this briefly. And where I want to start is the feast or famine cycle. And where I want to first start is encouraging you with something. Take a look at this. Imagine if this was when you opened up your view of all the conversations that you're having with all your various clients about their various projects, if it looked something like this. Now, what I'm showing you is I've blurred this out because this was for a client that I was working with, and I want to protect the innocent here. But this was a prospecting sales or prospecting pipeline that we built. And in a matter of just about a month or two, his intern, okay, this was his intern, she started, 131 conversations, totaling a value of potentially 965,000 Canadian dollars. Now, when you look at this, I want you to get excited. I mean, this is obviously me sort of clickbaiting you into this module, because what I want you to understand is if you were going to have 131 conversations, how would you do that with your present tool? What would your present method be? And most of us have a Post-it note, and we have an email inbox, we have something flagged for follow-up, and we might have a meeting or a spreadsheet where we drop some things in. But here's what we know really happens in the real world. Because here's a quote, I'm quoting an owner that I talked to just the other day. He said, look, Joel, here's the problem. We only sell when we're not busy. Then we get busy and we stop selling. So this is the feast or famine cycle. And if you can feel me, if you've lived this, if this is just how you've existed forever, then just give me a hearty amen in the chat, because I know this is the reality that I lived in when I ran my studio, and I'm sure that you running your creative business struggle with this as well. So that full pipeline of all those conversations is what I call let your opportunity always exceed your capacity. And it's a very healthy place to be as a business, especially at a time like this, right? Now let's talk about this. What is sales? Because for those of you that are creatives, you might cringe when I say the word sales, because you think sales is smiling and dialing, it's knocking on doors, it's being a used car salesman, it's this glad handing, good old boys, whatever sort of thing. It's dirty. And my encouragement to you is I want to redefine the word sales. And I want you to think of it this way, that sales is simply building relationships and sharing your expertise. That's it. That's what sales is. So whenever I talk about a sales pipeline, whenever I talk about let's go out and get some sales, I don't want you to think in terms of, oh, I'm going to go hammer people and bug them. That's not sales. Sales is let's go create a relationship with somebody so that we can share our expertise with them. That's what sales is. Now, why is sales so complex? Why is it so difficult to get our our heads around this and make sales something that will get us out of that feast or famine cycle. Why is it so tricky? And here's my observation, that if you go back maybe a generation ago, why sales was simple. I call this the golden age, like the good old days. And that was 20 years ago, it was all you had to do was really move someone out there in the world from these two different stages. You had to move them from unaware, and then they would award you a project. And there was a conversation, you sent a 3/4 inch tape, they looked at your work and they said, you're great, let's work together. So as soon as you made them, move them from unaware to something else, you were talking about a project, and that was it. That was sales. This is the era of reps into the business, and production companies started operating in the 90s. But now, what does it look like? Here is what the reality looks like today. And why sales now is so complex is we have this thing we call the creative firm sales cycle. But now we have to move people through 5 different stages. There's moving from unaware to aware, and then from aware to interest, then to intent, and then to award. And we'll talk a little bit more about what each of these mean. But I want you to notice that the first half of this cycle is marketing. And then the second half is sales. So that's another way to think of the distinction between marketing and sales. Is marketing is generating awareness, it's stimulating interest, creating all that curiosity. And then once there's an intent, meaning an actual project or a need or something, then that process changes to a sales process. It's a sales conversation. Now, this is what happens. I'm going to talk about stretching out and scaling up. If you think of the way sales used to be, I could create a little spreadsheet and go into Google Sheets or Excel and say, I'm just going to keep track of all these people that I'm talking to, and then these are the people that are handing me jobs. And so I'm having 4 conversations in this little cheesy diagram here. So I have to keep track of 4 conversations. Now let me show you what a normal, modern sales pipeline, meaning a pipeline of we're moving people through these stages from unaware all the way to award, looks more like this. So you realize, wait a minute, I now have to potentially have 30 conversations with all these people that I'm moving from unaware to aware to interest to intent to negotiation to award. So this is sort of a classic sales pipeline. And some people do this using a spreadsheet, and that's totally fine. You know, Tim, you're always the one to say technology follows technique. So if you have a technique and you're moving people through these stages, this is what you're really doing. And that's a totally fine way to work at it. But just notice this. If we were going to talk about where you should start right now, even with just reaching out to existing clients, existing customers, I would want you to scale that up. Don't reach out to 2. I want you to reach out to 20. See if you can find 30 people in the world that you have a relationship with, that you can connect and share your expertise, check in with them. How are they doing? What's going on in their world? Well, if we're going to do that, we've got to scale things up. So this is where we're going to stretch out that pipeline, and we're going to scale it up as well. Because in the numbers, of course, is where we're going to have we're going to escape that feast or famine cycle that we talked about earlier. All right, so what about setting up our sales pipeline? Well, let me give you a glimpse here. And Tim, just confirm, can you see my Pipedrive when I switch over? I don't know if you're on mute. I'm going to check my chat just in case someone here. Oh, cool. Footy, thanks for that that comment. Thanks, Kenneth. Yep. So here's this software here that I'm showing you. This is just a simple sales pipeline software that all of our clients use. It's called Pipedrive. We're a big fan. We can give you a link so that you can get a month of this. Because we're such close friends with Pipedrive. But there are many Pipedrive tools out there, or pipeline tools. HubSpot has one and a few others. You can use Trello, whatever it is. Pipedrive just happens to be the one that we love the most, so I'm going to show you that. But what you're seeing here is stages. So this is the default setup that you get in Pipedrive. Lead in, contact made, demo scheduled, proposal made, negotiation started. And we're going to move deals. And deals is just a conversation that we're having with somebody from left to right. But I like to mimic my pipeline to look like the creative firm sales cycle. So what I have are people that are my far left These are repeat business and what I call my top 20. Then I have a stage called interested. And I define this as these are people that have proposed a next step in the process, or I have and they accepted. Then we have intent, meaning there's an actual project. They have a project. Then there's sent proposal. Then there's this sort of in-between phase of negotiating where we're having conversations about getting the deal done. And then finally, where the job is awarded and it's active. Now, the thing that's great about Pipedrive is at a glance, notice this is 23 conversations I'm having. And this what I would say is a very reasonable pipeline for maybe $1 million a year creative firm. And what's you can notice by taking a glance at this is this has 23 deals in it. Let's see if I zoom in here. And it has a total value of $1.1 million in this. And that alone should encourage you to realize, wow, if I could have a conversation with 23 of my past and existing clients and nurture these conversations along, obviously something like this is going to allow me to scale my conversations and keep track of them in a way that I could never do in my brain or just via email. Now, I'll just show you this in case you have never seen the way a pipeline works, is let's say I talk to somebody at Food Network. Now I'm going to stay here that say I have a project called ABC Television Deal. Well, let's say I don't even know if this is a real thing. It's just an idea. But I know somebody at ABC and I call them and say, hey, I'm checking in and how are you? And on the conversation, he says, I'd really be interested in talking to you about something. I say, okay, he's now interested. I would then go into that thing, here's the deal, and I would just rename it and say, Project XYZ. And then I'll create a value to it. It sounds like what he needs to do might be something that's $10,000. So there I go. And now you can see it's linked. I need to link it to a person. So let's see. I don't know if I have a person here in my Pipedrive because this is all dummy information. So I won't worry about that now. But then as this conversation proceeds, I can go into this view here and move it. Once the person says, yes, it's really a project, I move it into here. I might go into this deal and take notes here so that I can keep track of where is this at? How's this conversation going? And then once I send them a proposal, I drop it in here, then we're negotiating. And then once it's awarded, I bring it over in here. And that is how I keep track of 23 different conversations going at all times. So let me just check back with my keynote and make sure that I'm on point here. One other thing I'll just show you that's a favorite technique of mine, especially when we're talking about repeat business and repeat clients, is take a look at my contacts here. Now, these are all fake people, but I just want you to notice that in my list of people, I have a label here that I call top 20. So I can change these labels. All this label is I've created a list, and I do this with all of my clients, and it's like a weekly routine that we do. I say to them, who are the 20 people that are going to most impact your business in the next 90 days? And it could be a person, it could also be a company. And then we just maintain this list. And it's not exactly 20, it might be 15 or 25 or whatever. But what I want to know is we should always have a deal for these people in our sales pipeline somewhere. So when I go into my pipeline view, over here, this left column, you'll see it's called repeat and top 20. So what I like to do is when I go and look at my list of contacts, I want to look at top 20 here, and I want to make sure that I have an open deal next to every one of those top 20. And if I scan down here, I see something called, oh, look, Harvey Hyde at DirectV, there are 0 open deals, and he's my top 20. So that's my clue. I should immediately go into Harvey and just say, DirectTV deal value, I don't know a close date. I'm just going to put this in my repeat and top 20. So now I have a little reminder. This is my little placeholder. Here it is, right? That I'm going to call Harvey and just check in with him and ask him how he's doing and what's he up against. So this little container is just a way for you to always have those repeat clients and those relationships that are so valuable to you, always top of mind. Whenever you open up your sales pipeline, there they are saying, do something with me, deal with me. All right. So that's what a sales pipeline looks like. Let me just go through and share a couple other quick bullet points in terms of advice here. So one, the stages of your sales cycle. As we talked about in Pipedrive, instead of those default stages, I like to have these stages which really mimic what creative firms go through, but they really should mimic your method of your creative firm, because everybody does it a little bit different. But this is what I like to suggest as a starting point. Number two, rotting. There's a great feature that if you don't touch a deal within a certain number of days, it will turn red. And this is that great little friendly reminder that you can, in Pipedrive and some other tools, you can say, hey, if I haven't followed up with somebody in this stage within 3 days, turn red and tell me I got to do something with this. I also like this, probabilities. It's really great in a sales pipeline to be able to look at what's the estimated value of my pipeline. Am I going to be busy this month, maybe next month? Do I need to call freelancers? Do I need to release freelancers? Do I need to hire somebody? Do I need to lay somebody off? And that comes when you go into this view, which is this little forecast view up here, if you can see my screen. If you click on forecast, I can actually get a sense of how much revenue am I going to generate over these next few months. So in March, I'm estimating 35% of 119,000, and in April, 248,000. In May, 105, and June, 26,000. So this can be a very helpful tool, especially if you take this information and bring it into your cash flow. And so on your cash flow, you have an on-off switch called potential sales. And you can, this data can actually flow right in there. It's very powerful. Deal habits. Whenever you create a deal, just do yourself a favor, give it some kind of a value and some kind of an expected close date. That's what the software will use to create a projection of what you might be expecting in terms of revenue over the months ahead. I already talked about the top 20 list. This is the deals that you always want to be in your pipeline, no matter what. And then forecast. That's what I just mentioned. You can flow that into your cash flow. We call it a cash board at RevThink. Very powerful. A great way to just gain visibility. What are the real income and expenses I'm expecting? And then what about these sales? How would that impact my business in the months ahead? All right, let's talk about sales routine. What do you do? Okay, let's say you configure Pipedrive and you're raring to go. You're like some of our clients, the first time they see it, you're like, yes, where's this been all my life? That's great. Well, here's what do you do when you open it up? What's the routine you want to get into? How frequently? Kinds of things. Well, here's the simple thing. 4 things I like to do. 1, schedule a routine. And this is not sexy. This is just simply you saying once a week, maybe twice a week, but I would say about once a week, no more than every other week. Schedule a sales pipeline review. It's a meeting. You're basically looking at a report and you want to, step 2, in your pipeline, process from right to left. So get with your team, whether it's your producer, your EP, whoever is on your team, and go through your pipeline from right to left. And I know that seems backwards, but if you look at a sales pipeline, I want you to first focus on, let me go to the actual pipeline. First, what awarded and active? Are you taking care of those people? These are the 1 in the hand before we talk about the 2 in the bush. Then you move left. Who am I negotiating with? Deal with those, process those items. Then who have I sent a proposal to? Deal with those items, and so on and so forth. Because eventually you're going to run out of time and be busy, and you may not have time to get to these things on the left, which are not as urgent. Top 20, make sure your pipeline always has your top 20 in your pipeline somewhere at all times. That is such a great, great, great habit. And then forecast, update your cash flow. If you have a cash board, put that data into your cash flow so you can get a sense of how likely are these deals to happen and how likely will these impact my business going forward. Okay, that is the overview that I wanted to cover today. I know that was fast and furious. Thank goodness this is all being recorded. So if you guys and gals want to watch this later, we'll post this replay for you. If you want to get the final module once I've recorded it and my team has edited it, please DM me in Slack, and I will be happy to share the module with you. I might even create a bit of homework to go with the module, which is what I like to do in Jumpstart, is give you some tasks so that you can process these items. Also, I should do you a favor. Let me get this link for Pipedrive. If anybody thinks, wow, Pipedrive looks really cool, you can use this code and get a free month trial, which is really handy if you want to dive in and just get your feet wet. Here's that link. Hang on a second. Oh, did you, you already got that link. Oh, cool. Thank you, Ethan. I'll drop that here in the chat. Okay. All right, let me just check the chat real quick for questions and comments, and let me see who else is still here. It looks like Tim had to move on, so no problem, Tim. Glad you could be with us today. Couple of comments. My bandwidth was low during that. Hopefully it wasn't too interrupted. Let's see, gotta run. Footy, great jobs. Thanks for continuing the creative convo. Keeping a community propped up with positivity. That's a lot of P's, but I like it. Kenneth, I know that you love Pipedrive. What does that do that FX Streak doesn't do? I don't know. I'm not familiar with FX Streak, so it's hard for me to comment there, Kenneth, but I will just say that when I work with the Pipedrive, the things that I love about it compared to other sales pipeline tools is, first of all, it's easy. It's just drag and drop. It's so easy to use. It's brainless. Number two, I can get data in and out of Pipedrive really fast, and I can pull data into Google Sheets and other places on the web, so I can use that data and connect it easily to other things. It also integrates with MailChimp and some of these other things. So if you want to create a sales funnel, landing page, those kinds of things that actually drive people to have a conversation with you, you can do some of those things. Okay, cool, Ethan, you already dropped in that link, so I just duplicated that. Kenneth, I see that you have estimations of the value. What is your approach to estimating that? Okay, great question. Here's the way I estimate. I just completely ballpark. So for example, let's say a client regularly, you work with 3 or 4 times a year, they do a promo, they work at a TV network. Back in the day when I did promos, they were usually $30,000 to $40,000 on average. Sometimes they were double that, but I would just plug in a number, maybe this is $40,000, because I know I can change it at any time once I get more information. But I like to put in a rough estimate of the number, and I tend to be a little more conservative, not ambitious. So if it could be double that, I don't put in the double number. I put in that $30,000 or $40,000 number. But just take a guess, because what I would say to you is guessing at this stage is better than not doing anything. There's a funny saying in the South, just because you don't know everything doesn't mean you don't know nothing. And that's the idea, that once you create a list of all the deals that are in play, you'll find out that your gut has a sense of the value and the timing, and those things will tend to come true because there's this intuition that plays out. And so just guess at a value, guess at an estimated close date, and just go with it, and then revise as you get more accurate information. Your fury is appreciated. I love that. That's nice. Thank you. Thumbs up to you, Eric. Appreciate that. And that is our show today, folks. I hope you enjoyed this demo. And if you have questions or comments with me on this, hit me up. You can either DM me in the 7 Ingredients Slack channel, but also feel free to get a conversation going in the sales channel there as well, because we have a whole channel there dedicated to sales, which we now know is no longer a dirty word. Sales is just you simply being the beautiful, awesome, fabulous creative entrepreneur that you are. It's building relationships, and then it's going out and sharing your expertise with those people to help them. That's what it's all about. All right, thanks everyone. Thanks Kenneth, thanks Brent, everyone else. Really appreciate you guys being here today. We will see you tomorrow for another 30-minute daily briefing live stream. So on behalf of Tim and Marcel, I appreciate you guys all being here and being active in that Slack workspace. So long. See you next time.